Hey, what's up guys? So today I want to talk about the Stellar Knight archetype because I think it's got a lot of potential and it's relatively budget friendly at the moment. Depending on what support we get for them in the future, that can totally change it. But for now, I would say it's a pretty little fun XYZ rank 4 oriented deck, and it's got a few nice combos. As of right now, I think the archetype is more so something that you can splash them into other archetypes. As a pure archetype, I feel like what happens with them is if their summons don't go off, you have so many cards that kind of require you to have other cards on board, which means that the Satellar Knights, kind of like Gladiator Beasts. Like if you're playing Gladiator Beasts and you got your Kaiser Colosseums, you got your War Chariot, you have your other cards that just require you to have a Gladiator Beast on board, you won't be able to really make use of them if they, let's say, Torrential Tribute. They basically stop your summon. They solemn warning you. Like that one solemn warning sometimes can make, a huge difference because you can't even play. Like literally, you can't make any moves because all your cards require the Satellar Knights on board in order to activate them. So this is going to be kind of a archetype overview because a lot of players are interested in actually running the deck. I've been testing out the deck. I'm trying out a lot of different builds. I'm trying stun versions. I'm trying chaos. I'm trying to splash them into other archetypes, and as of right now, I feel like they can work kind of as a archetype in combination with Shaddolls, so you can actually use them because you can send them to the graveyard, and them in the graveyard kind of helps you set up for your plays in the future. But let's go ahead and get started, and we're just going to be talking about the cards as we go along, and I'll talk about some of these other cards that you can run in the deck. I mean, well, we don't even really need to mention this. I mean, Roto went to 2. That's all that was there for, but this is not my actual extra deck. I just want to talk about some of these cards for this archetype because some of them do require, like, warriors, and that can be really beneficial because some of these cards normally don't see any play because, you require warriors, and some decks don't have the option to make warriors. There's a lot of good stuff, like this card. It gets over the Cliff Oath Killer, or the Cliff Fort, as they are now called. Eventually they'll probably get the name right. But anyways, let's go ahead and finally get started. So let's go ahead and go over all the monsters and the traps that are available now. They might get some more support in the future, and as of right now, like I said, I don't feel like they work as a standalone archetype. But anyways, first off, we got the Altair over here. He's a really good guy. He's kind of like a Wolf Bark, or he's able to bring, he's able to, I don't want to say, he basically starts your combos in the deck to recycle what you already have and continuously go on with your combos. But again, going back to the same point, if the effect doesn't go off, you can really fall apart quite fast in this deck. But when it's normal or special summon, you get to target one Tellar Knight monster in graveyard, you get to special summon it, and then for the rest of the turn, only Tellar Knight monsters can attack. And it also has the effect where only once per turn can you use the effect of that specific Tellar Knight. So they all pretty much have that same effect where you can only activate the effect of that specific Tellar Knight once per turn. So I won't really mention that for the rest of it. But he's basically your card that you really want to normal summon. Then you want to bring out another Tellar Knight. And the Tellar Knight that you want to bring out is going to be Deneb. Deneb is the Stratos for the deck, and he's only 1500, but he definitely helps out. If he gets bottomless, though, it can be kind of unfortunate because the main play in this deck is to get Deneb to the graveyard. However you get it to the graveyard, it doesn't really matter, but you want to normal summon Altair over here. You want to then special summon Deneb, and all of them get their effects when they're normal or special summons, so I really like Call of the Haunted in the deck. But what you do is you summon him, and then you summon Deneb. Deneb activates its effect, then you can search out another copy of Altair over here, so that's really good. So basically you can kind of see the loops, like I said, or the small little engine that they have going for it. And the only problem, like I said before, is if something disrupts your combos, especially if you're playing a pure version, you will have a lot of cards that just won't even be able to be played because it requires you to have a Tellar Knight on board. So it almost reminds me of the whole Trap Tricks engine. Like there's that small little engine to be able to get additional free cards. The only problem that I have with the archetype is it kind of sets you up for plays in the future. It doesn't set you up for plays immediately. And with Trap Tricks, I mean, you're able to pop a back row, or you can actually be able to add like another bottom of trap hole that's from the graveyard. So it allows you to play, I guess you could say, more aggressive immediately rather than being able to get an advantage that goes on during the next turn. Next up, we have the Cyrus over here. When I read this card, I was like, man, I'm going to make a turbo engine with this. And it actually kind of failed, but this is more for like the pure version of the deck because I feel like the most splashable cards are just these two. These are the cards that you probably want to be splashing. You can even splash Vega, I guess you could say. It's not a bad card, but for the most part, Cyrus is like a mini Pot of Avarice. He gets to put back 5, and then he gets to draw 1, and he doesn't have too much attack. Like a lot of them just have like almost enough attack. Like they're just so close. Like the card that has the highest attack that you can just straight up Summon as of right now is going to be 1800. Like if it was 1900, it would just be so much better. But next up we have Vega. Vega allows you to just go for rank 4 plays as quickly as possible. What's nice is opening up with Deneb, because if this card is summoned, you can special summon another Tellar Knight monster from your hand, except for the same copy of itself. And as of right now, there's only 2 XYZs for the deck, and they both require 3 level 4 monsters. So when I was playing the deck, I noticed I hardly ever brought them out. They have decent effects. We'll get into that a little bit later, but I feel like there's so many good cards that you don't even really need that effect of Altair, where it's like the monsters that aren't Tellar Knights can't attack. So like that effect is really not that like worrisome, because you could always use Call of the Haunted. You can always make cards like Black Ship of Corn 101 or Castiel to basically get rid of whatever the problematic card or the boss monster on board anyway. So I feel like that's not really something you have to worry about. And Vega just allows you to technically make these more often or go for other rank 4 plays, and also technically it's just more monsters that you can dump in as quickly as possible if you were wanting to play a more turbo-oriented build to actually get more pluses with this card. But I feel like if you're going to be able to go for this card successfully multiple times, and especially if you're already running Call of the Haunted, I really didn't need this card. Even when I was playing the pure version, I didn't really like it too much, because it was more like a late game card, and if you're already getting so many monsters in the graveyard, it's just not too great in my opinion, because it's more like I said, it's like more like a late game card, and if you've already gotten your effects, you should be in a winning position anyways. And next up we have the Unu Kahai, and his effect is he can send 1 target monster from the deck to the graveyard. Usually that becomes Deneb, but if you're also playing this card over here, we can just get into it right now. This is Satellar Knight Sky Ridge. It makes it so you can target 1 Tellar Knight monster you control, special summon 1 Tellar Knight monster with a different name from your deck, and if you do, shuffle the targeted monster into the deck. While the monster special summoned by this effect is face up on the field, you cannot special summon other monsters except for Tellar Knight monsters, and you can activate once. And that's where I'm like, oh, I don't really like this card, because that means if I really want to make something like a Vol Chain, depending on if you're playing like a BLS Turbo build, because I threw this in here and it's actually pretty good, because Word Returning Alive is fantastic in the deck, because it just allows you to just keep on abusing Altair over and over. It's just a 1-card rank 4 play, and it's still really good. Plus it gives you a +1 with this, usually, which searches out another copy of this anyways. But for the most part, I really don't feel like this card is like super good unless you're playing like a pure version, because it makes the deck a lot slower. I would much rather just play Summoner Monk. If I really wanted just to get my deck going, I'd rather go Summoner Monk, discard a spell card, and then be able to just get out this, and then activate this card's effect, then search out this, and then I already have options for a rank 4, and I don't have that downside of the Tellar Knight. I can only use Tellar Knights, and on top of that, next turn I'm just going to be able to go for this, go for this again, and then search out another copy of this. So I really don't feel like it's really that necessary to run this card. Next up, Sham. He's kind of like a troll. Like, I hate this card so much. I try to make a burn version. I try everything, even though I know it's bad. I'm like, you know what, we're just gonna try it. And I tried to make a burn version of the deck. It was just kind of there as like I would summon it, and then I try to set like magic cylinders and stuff like that. It didn't really work out too well. But it was there. I was trying also to make cowboys like as often as possible and making it rank 4 deck. I just wanted to just basically spam this. It didn't work. It was always a few thousand life points. Like, it was always like 3,000 life points off. Otherwise, I would be able to finish the game. And usually they ended up popping the back row. And once they saw the 1 magic cylinder, they're like, oh, I know what you're playing. And then they make something like Armades, and then you just have a bad time. So yeah, that's my thoughts on this guy. Next up, we have Pyro Scion over here. So when it's summoned, you can just send 1 Tellar Knight monster from your hand to the graveyard to draw another card. Going back to the same idea of this card, it kind of just, it tries to speed up the deck. If you want to, you can try a turbo version. I just don't like it too much, at least from my experience. I just had a bad experience. Maybe you'll have the heart of the cards. And then lastly, I don't know if this one's out yet, but anyways, when it's summoned, you can target 1 Tellar Knight monster in graveyard, except for the same copy of itself, and it sends this card to the graveyard. If you do it, add the other one to your hand, and you're just gonna, add this card to your hand. I just don't like it, because I would much rather just play War Returning Live, search out any of them anyways, you know what I mean? So I don't really feel like that card is that necessary, but this card does have the effect that it is 1900 defense. That's all it's really there for, but other than that, not the best. But this card over here, it lets you dodge things. Also, if I didn't mention that already, like if someone activates something, you could bottomless it, whatever. But the only problem is you usually don't make these cards too often, even if you're like, making these cards. You usually need this card anyways, so bringing out another copy of this, you can only activate its effect once. So I really just didn't like this card. And going back to the same idea, if someone activates Solemn Warning or something like that, you just have a bad time. But against other things, you can technically chain it and you'll be good to go. Just don't chain it on something like Torrential Tribute, unless you're just trying to search out like another card or something like that, because the monster will still die. Next up, the Satellar Knight. This is a field spell for the XYZs, and at the moment I really don't like the XYZs. I'll talk about them because we're almost done in just a moment. But they gain 200 attack and defense, and then when they're targeted for an attack, you can send one Teller monster from your hand to the graveyard and negate the attack. I was like, why? Like, why would you want to send? That's like going minus just for like a boost of like some mediocre. It gives you additional attack, but. Like, I just don't like this card overall. I just thought it was terrible. Maybe you guys disagree. You know a combo that I just don't know. Here's the first stun card. It is Stellar Knight Factory. You equip to a Teller Knight monster you control. It gains 500 attack and defense. It's unaffected by your opponent's card effects. Again, going back to the same idea, if you don't happen to have your monster on board, you're just going to have a bad time with more conventional cards that you can't use because you don't have a Stellar Knight. But nonetheless, this was the first card that I was like, well, I'll just try to build a stun version, maybe like Kaiser Coliseum or something. But then people will just get rid of this card and then they can target your monster. So that was one problem with it. Maybe if you also have like mystical, what is that, White Dragon Ninja, and then you protect this card, then you're looking at a pretty nasty thing to deal with. Next up, there's Celestial Factor, which is kind of like a Solemn Judgment, if you will, but it can stop effects too. So it's when a spell or trap card or monster effect is activated, you can send one face-up Teller Knight monster you control to the graveyard and negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it and draw a card. So not only does it let you kind of neutralize the minus because, well, quote-unquote minus, because sometimes you can just go for this card, grab out a card, and if you know your opponent happens to have something that will deal with you next turn, you can always just activate this card's effect, grab a card, and then just set this card, and then be able to stop whatever your opponent is going for. Maybe you know for sure next turn they got Miracle Fusion. You can negate the Miracle Fusion, draw a card, and you still have this on board. Now, I'm glad they didn't make its effect once per turn, because this would be really OP if it was a once per turn effect. But, nonetheless, it's an okay card. I felt like, again, it was just going back to the same idea of the conjunctional cards, and I just didn't like that. Lastly, we have Celestial Aura. So once per turn during your main phase or your opponent's battle phase, you can spell summon one Teller Knight monster from your hand. So it tries to make you, I guess you could say, exhaust your hand as quickly as possible, because that's what it feels like the deck wants you to do. It wants you to throw out, like, just special, get out something, and then try to protect it really hard. I don't think that really works. The Noble Knights, you can do that because the Noble Knights are like, no, you can't target me, you can't destroy me by battle, and you can't destroy my card effects. But the thing is, with this card over here, it just makes it so it's unaffected by your opponent's card effects. You can still destroy it by battle, although the monster will have decent amount of attack, because there's one with 25 and there's one with 21, but still there are things that can, you know, just crash, and you know, it's unfortunate things happen like that. But that's it for what we have available right now. Now, as far as the XYZs in the deck, Delteros over here has a pretty decent effect. So while it has material, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects when you normal or special summon a monsters. And then once per turn, you can detach one material from this card, then target one card in the field, destroy it, and if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can special summon a one Teller Knight monster from your hand or deck. Not too bad of an effect, especially since you can get this card again. But I feel like most of the times in the game, I would just rather go for, you know, a Cassia. I don't want to go normal and then get its effect, and then also have to use one card out of my hand, or, you know, activating a Call of the Haunted, and then having my opponent stop the play, and then me going super minus. I think it's much more beneficial just to use a one-for-one. Like, if I go for this, and it activates its effect, and then I try to XYZ and they bottomless, that's fine. But if I go for this, and then I go bring out another thing, and then I go for, you know, something Violent to Sigma or something like that, and they Solemn Warning, they Black Horn of Heaven, then I'm looking at a game where I'm at a disadvantage, you know what I mean? So I really don't like how their monsters require 3 at the moment, but again, they might get some more support in the future that just requires 2, but they might be a little bit too good if they do that. But this card also has the fact that once per turn you can attach one material from this card, then target one card on the field and destroy it, and I like that effect. That's not a bad card at all. Then there's also the Stellar Knight Trivial, and it has a pretty decent effect that you can't special, well, that's actually like, first off, the bad effect, that you can't special summon monsters during the turn this card is summoned, except for Teller Knight monsters. When this card is XYZ summoned, return all other cards in the field in the hand. So that has double utility, because remember, you can set your Call of the Haunteds, activate your Call of the Haunteds, get this guy out to bring back other things, and you're able to actually recycle those things. So I think that that is really good. And then once per turn, you can attach one material from this card to send one random card from your opponent's hand to the graveyard. And this sent while it has material, you can target one Teller Knight monster in your graveyard. The one problem I have with this is that if it's sent to the graveyard while it has material, obviously that's not too bad of an effect. But the only problem I have with this is that usually what happens is it gets absorbed by one-on-one. Same thing that happens with this, because when it's sent from the field to the graveyard, and when they're as material, it doesn't count from field to the graveyard. So unfortunately, they will not get their effects. Now, unlike the Shaddolls, which are the archetype that I think is much stronger right now at the moment. But the thing is, yeah, the one-on-one just absorbs these things, and that's really the problem with this. I guess you could say their ability to recycle after you've made these cards it doesn't exist, because this card is always relevant, or I mean, this card can technically be relevant as well, because it goes back into the deck. But this card is fantastic. Like I mentioned before, like the downside of this card doesn't really need to be a downside if you're making some of these cards over here. Also, what's good in the deck is getting over the Cliff Oath Killer. This card's awesome. This card's awesome too. I really wanted to put 2 at one point. Heck, you can even make S39 Utopia 1 in the deck. I just thought that was kind of funny. This card's not bad. I don't remember when this card is coming out, but I thought this card wasn't bad, and I figured we mentioned it. I was thinking about Ragna Zero in the deck, because if you're able to run something like Burn of the Mighty, I think it's just really trollsy. But again, it's not really going towards the archetype of the Satellar Knights. But making this card is pretty easy in this deck, because this deck is, like I said, is a rank 4 spam deck, and being able to just make this, and if you have Burn of the Mighty, like all the pluses, and again, going back to the same idea that you can't attack other than Satellar Knights, so if they have Burn of the Mighty, you just pop something, draw 1 card. I like that effect. Pretty simple effect. And then we have Blade Armor Ninja, which is fantastic. Lets you OTK in certain circumstances. Maybe if you're able to drop like a BLS in combination, you're able to do that. Again, Diva's also not too bad. It has a stun aspect, so if you're able to clear your opponent's stuff. Oh, one thing that's important, if I didn't mention already, you can attack with all your monsters that aren't Tellar Knights, and then you can activate this card's effect, then still special summon whatever, and then the downside isn't really there anyways. Like maybe you attack over everything and they happen to have like a fire ice hand, and main phase 2 you go ahead and activate this card and go for Black Triple Corn or something like that. That's just as a heads up. But other cards that work well in the deck. Well, Honest works really well in the deck. War Return Live works really well in the deck. Kaiser Coliseum, if you want to play a stun version, like I said, I tried making a stun version. I just find it to be too conjunctional. And now, with Yugo being as fast as it is, conjunctional decks don't generally function as well, because you can fall apart really quick. Like, you have to open up first and you have to output them with everything. I would say Bujins is not really a conjunctional deck. I mean, it requires you to have like Yamato as quickly as possible, but the thing is, once you have the Yamato, it like everything searches out off of the Yamato, so you're basically good to go after Yamato gets it summoned. But the thing is, if Yamato doesn't get it summoned, yes, you technically have cards like Crane that are kind of useless, if you guys follow me with what I'm saying. As far as the whole Gladiator Beast archetype, I feel like that's something that a lot of players will understand. With like, you have your dead War Chariots, sometimes you can have dead Respites, like you need your Glads, and sometimes you just don't happen to have like a good hand. And you can brick real easy if you just get your 1 summon negated, or bottomless, or whatever happens to the monster. This card is not too bad in the deck. The reason why I like it, it's dark and it's warrior, and it lets me bring out BLS in the deck, because everything is light. So I was like, well, I'll go ahead and actually play BLS, because War Returning Live, I would say it's a pretty great card in the deck. I would recommend you to at least play 1, because this is the main card of the deck. And sometimes if this card gets stolen warninged, or whatever happens to the monster, you're able to activate War Returning Live and bring it back, and then kind of set up your combos again. So I really like this card in the deck, and I was like, well, if I'm playing this card, might as well play BLS and then throw in more copies of this. Reinforcement Army is at 2 right now, so it should be pretty easy to set up your combos. Also, I love this card because what you can do with this card is, oh, I forgot to even explain the spec. So it's the Blue Mountain Butter Spy, and it can't be normal summon or set. When you normal summon a war type monster, you can special summon this card, and it can't be used as synchro material monster. So what you do is you normal summon this, you go ahead and search out this guy, then you special summon this, and you're able to go for a rank 4 play. So whatever you want to make rank, whatever you want to make first turn. If you don't know what the heck to make first turn, I recommend Lavalval Chain and being able to dump your other cards, because you really don't want to draw any more of these, because it can't search out the same copy itself. You want these. So you can just start dumping these if you want. You can also dump other things, maybe if you happen to have Breakthrough Skill. Remember that you can send any card from your deck to the graveyard, so Breakthrough Skill can be an option. I really feel like this deck has a bad matchup against Shaddolls if you don't happen to have Call of the Haunted early on. If you have Call of the Haunted or something to bring out other monsters, you can technically survive a lot easier, but this deck does not function very well when you only get 1 summon. It really wants you to normal this, and then special this, and then make something, and then do it all over next turn. Like, it wants you to go for the rank 4s, and when someone has the you can't special summon, the deck, like I said, falls apart relatively quick. But if you're able to stop it with, something like the Celestial Factor, hey, you can definitely use that to your advantage. Like I said, you can try a Kaiser Coliseum build. What I wanted to do, guys, was I wanted to make this card, oh, well, I just where to go. I wanted to make this card throw up Kaiser Coliseum and equip it with that equip card where it gains 500 unaffected. But the only problem is they would get rid of one of these, and like Fire and Ice Hand just ruined this deck. Like that setup so hard, and that's why I'm like, I really don't like it. Like just that one Ice Hand. I know that this it has to the Fire Ice Hand has to destroy. So obviously if it has this, like, well, Fire Hand won't do any good. But anyways, that Ice Hand, once the Ice Hand goes off and it kills this, then you're looking at something that's generally not too favorable. But that's my thoughts on the archetype as a whole. I really recommend Summoner Monk too. Summoner Monk is fantastic in the deck, and if you have multiples of these, you can get rid of this. I mean, this card is just a really good card in general. There's really no downsides to Kaiser, because if you're able to you know, go for something like Celestial Aura, and then you use Tribute like your one only monster, and then your opponent, you know, goes for something like Soul Charge. You just call the Haunted. Oh, I got my one monster. You can only have one too, or just something like that. Because yeah, just being able to call the Haunted after you get rid of your monster or something like that is just, it's good, because when some decks can't XYZ, they fall apart relatively quick. And this is one of those decks where I would say if you can't special summon, you know, multiple times per turn like Midrash doesn't allow you to do, the deck can fall apart quite quick. But anyways, let me know your thoughts on the archetype. If you guys have any cool deck profiles, just let me know in the comment section below. Upload the picture to Imgur. I'll put a link down below, and I will check it out, because I'm trying out new builds myself. At the moment, I think they work pretty well as a splashable archetype, like I mentioned. I don't think they're a great standalone archetype. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day. Azneyes out.